All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, if you like the videos, like them and share them far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble, vice versa, all the way around. Get her to locals, right? You know the drill. It really does help with the algorithms and it helps with the sponsors. So a couple of seconds of your time can be an enormous help to us. But the best place to follow us is right there on the screen below me. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Listen, it's like you prepare for the show and then the news cycle, you have to adjust. You have to adjust. So there's a lot I want to get through today. And sometimes 2 hours flies on by. So let's play this first clip because I want to tee up some context as always. You know me, I'm big on context. I don't like obfuscation, which is something the media is very, very good at. They are untrusted, their credibility is in the tube, but they still have power. And how they wield that power often, more often than not, is by narrative, and obscurity is the way they push these narratives without giving people context, without giving people the timeline, without giving people fact patterns. They obscure things. And you know what? Not every American has the time nor the will to go digging deep into into the source of a story or into the crux of a story and get the minutia, the facts, and all of that. Yo, what's up to you too, Jay? What's up? Happy Monday to everybody. I hope you all had a great weekend. Book club was cool yesterday. If you're not in the book club, I would very much encourage you to sign up. Sunday on 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we hold it most of the time. We've read many, many, many good books at this point. We've read Myths of Empire by Jack Snyder. We've read Tragedy of Great Power Politics by John Mearsheimer. Prescient works that you must know if you're going to wade through this obscurity. We also read The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution by Bernard Bailyn. Staple books, folks. And now moving into the election year, we hit, of course, Kevin Phillips, The Emerging Republican Majority, a primer on Teixeira's and Judas's, John Judas and Ruiz Teixeira, The Emerging Democratic Majority, which, of course, gives like a hat tip to Kevin Phillips saying, we're going to use your terminology. We're going to use your language. We're going to talk on it. We're going to piggyback off of your thesis and use your lingo. Your nomenclature is in the house because we know you were right. And we're going to give you that respect, even though we're on the other side of the aisle. And now Gavin Wax and Troy Olson have the book, The Emerging Populist Majority, which is, kind of like in that trilogy, but it is this distinct difference with it, which is interesting. And what I like about it is that you have Gavin, who's from, you're talking about an Irish Catholic, if I remember correctly, talking about an Irish Catholic from the inner city, or not inner city, but urban New York, And then you have rural Minnesota in Troy, ancestral Democratic rural Minnesota. So those two worlds colliding to talk about something that we've long talked about, which is the obsession of the suburbs, is greatly over exaggerated, despite, the stats some people will try to throw at you, and that the future could belong to the urban rural coalition if somebody was smart enough to come along and seize it. And folks, that's why if you're in book club, you'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about on Inside the Numbers, because everything we're going to talk about today, including news, all the news of the day and whatnot, which I'm sure you understand where we're going, obviously the title of this show, but you'll understand it better if you understand what is the media so afraid of? What is the Biden White House so afraid of? All right. So Trump is trying to expand his map. And there's already some really bad numbers out there for Joe Biden. So what's left for Joe to do? What's left for Democrats to do? And by the way, we shouldn't say Democrats and paint it with that broad brush, because Republicans are still running considerably behind the Democratic Party. All right. There's Roro. He's coming to make a guest appearance with Winston. Let me play this clip first, and then we will come back. All right. All right.
Talk about the erosion for Biden, and now you start to see it. Look at these numbers. Trump advantages on all of these traits.
And I stop here because competent and effective, that was President Biden's, the crux of his campaign pitch back in 2020.
And we actually polled this question in 2020, and it was basically the exact opposite. It was Biden with about a 10-point advantage over Trump. And again, same with handling a crisis. Biden had the edge over Trump. And how about this? It's the former president, the current president. We don't really see matchups like this. Well, now we can measure it. Who has the strong record as president? And again, Trump outpacing Biden on that front. And again, you got to mention this one too. Necessary mental and physical health. We asked this 4 years ago. It was a wash. It's now a clear liability for Joe Biden. So these are all troubling numbers for Biden.
Yeah. Okay. So bottom line here, we don't. And Steve just said that really well. We don't have matchups like this in the modern era. We don't really have anything to compare this to, but we know presidents don't win with these numbers. Okay. When you're going against a former president and the public, the voting public, thinks that he was a better president than you, you're going to lose. All right. We can go back and forth with the tip, Biden +1, the ABC now using Ipsos, one of the worst polling outfit in the world, not the country, the world. Okay. Constantly they blew Brexit. They blew 2016. Their polling in 2018 done, sponsored by the University of Virginia, was awful. Beto O'Rourke was supposed to beat Ted Cruz by like 4 points, some ridiculous, I don't know, but it didn't happen. They always overstate Democratic support. The generic ballot, awful. The last generic ballot, 2020, awful. One of the worst polls out there, along with, by the way, Morning Consult, but they seem to have retooled. And I know their source now. I don't even know, maybe I shouldn't. I do. I know their source now. So I know that they're trying to do a better job. Ipsos just continuing along, pretending as if their panel's the best panel in the world still. You can go and look at their, their literature on how they advertise it, and they pretend like it's so great. It's not. Sorry. All right. Maybe if they did a much larger sample like AP Vocast or something, it would be more accurate because, look, the knowledge panel and stuff like that. I mean, if you get a huge sample, maybe your weighting efficiencies won't be so low when you try to represent all these different groups. But the samples they use, they're awful. Why is ABC even using them when Gary Langer had very different results? The Mr. Biden +17 in Wisconsin was having Trump polling very, very strong. So why is ABC now no longer doing it with the Washington Post and instead using the Ipsos panel? Yeah, think about it. All right. Anyway, what do you do if you're Joe Biden? All right. Democrats are running way ahead of you in battleground states for key Senate races, which we're going to talk about a little bit. There's several articles I want to read to you today. What do you do? I'll tell you what you do. It depends how far you're willing to go. Do you care about the rule of law? Do you care about justice, Lady Justice, the old scales? Do you care about any of that? Do you care about the future of the country and where the country's going? Because if you don't, and you're all about raw power, then there's a simple way to do this. Get your friends to prosecute your political opponent. Wait 3 years until he's running and you're 6 months away from the election or even a year out, and then bring these trials. Create novel legal theories that nobody's ever heard of. Fabricate crimes that weren't committed and don't exist. And then get your friends to get their daddies to sit on the bench and rule in your favor constantly and deny that person a fair trial. If you don't care about freedom of speech, this is the way to go. If you don't care about the rule of law, this is the way to go. If all you care about is remaining in power, if all you care about is exercising raw political power and holding on to it, because if you don't, maybe your own family will end up in jail. Maybe your son, who was your bag boy, will end up getting prosecuted and flip on you and tell on his daddy. So if you put yourself before the good of the country and the direction of the country, this is a no-brainer. So Trump's back in New York City today, again, because of this Alvin Bragg case, which we have to, again, context. All of these other cases that were brought against Donald Trump are failing and failing miserably. Fani Willis is a crook. She's been humiliated. Her case is basically decimated. Either way, it's not going to be hatched out before the election. Jack Smith, who we now know, both with the documents case and January 6th case, coordinated with the Biden White House in doing this, especially the Records Act. The goods are just black and white on that. The Biden White House was directing that investigation. Just by the way, just like the Obama White House was directing the investigation against Michael Flynn. In fact, it was Joe Biden, according to Barack Obama's own handwritten notes, it was Joe Biden's idea to use the novel legal theory of the Logan Act to go after Michael Flynn, which of course the Logan, folks, these things are total jokes. So why wouldn't we have expected Joe Biden, who himself called himself a political whore, why would we not expect Joe Biden to do this if we know his pattern of behavior fits the bill perfectly? There are snags in the Presidential Records Act case, big snags. There are snags in the January 6th case. We have rulings from the Supreme Court we're waiting on with immunity, with obstruction. Jack Smith's case is likely and expected to be at least gutted at least halfway. And the problem is prosecutors need to make these shotgun charges in order for their underlying crime to stick. If they can't shotgun charge them with all these different charges to put together these conspiracies and these legal theories, then their cases will not hold up. And definitely will not hold up on appeal, even if you can get a rigged jury system to convict your political opponent, which is what we have in the state of New York. And as somebody who has done extensive voir dire research for lawyers, high-profile lawyers, and high-profile cases, ones that you know of and you follow in national news, I am telling you, it is the height of irony to me that Judge Mearshon is alleging in New York that Donald Trump is somehow tainting the jury pool because he is making comments that state the fact that the jury pool is already biased against him, that this is an unfair venue, that he cannot get a fair trial. This is 100% correct. 100%. Before we play his reaction, before we play the reaction of some of the media outlets, let's play the statement, because forget about the obscurity. Let's play the statement that got Donald Trump in trouble again. And now Judge Mearshon, who should absolutely have recused himself. We're going to talk more about this with Daniel Street, lawyer and author Daniel Street, in a second. I'll let him speak more about this. But this is a man who has donated to Biden. His daughter works for Joe Biden, folks. She works for a firm that is working to get Joe Biden reelected. She has raised a ton of money on her daddy being the judge. This is not America. This is Soviet shit. I'm sorry, Laura. This is not America. This is Soviet stuff. Worse. It's worse. Because at least the Soviets didn't parade themselves around as the bastion of democracy and self-governance and freedom. This is a disgrace. I don't care if this was Bernie Sanders. I'd be just as pissed. If it was Barack Obama, I'd be just as pissed. This is disgusting. The power of the state being used to target a presidential former president and then a presidential candidate to threaten to throw him in jail because he's exercising his First Amendment right despite your unconstitutional gag order that you slapped on him. This is out of control now, folks. Out of control. And most Americans know it. Sure, you can have your partisan, rabid Democrat leftists that, just are totally okay with it. But they need to understand, if they're listening to the show right now, you are in the minority. Americans do see through this. Persuadables, that's why you're losing. That's why Trump is winning, even though your party is doing really well in Senate races and district races. All right, before we play his reaction, let's play the clip. Let's play it. You're CNN so giddy. I'm going to have to throw you in jail, Mr. Trump. And they just love it. They love it.
Juan Merchan says the presumptive Republican nominee did violate the order when he said this on April 22nd.
That jury was picked so fast. 95% Democrats. The area is mostly all Democrat. You think of it as just a purely Democrat area. It's a very unfair situation, that I can tell you.
Absolutely 100% correct. Nothing he said right there is incorrect. That jury, listen, I've done this a lot. I've worked a lot of these cases. Some judges give you more time than others to select juries. All right. Some judges want voir dire done and out of the way. They want jury selection done and out of the way. Maybe he's used to doing that in this district because the fact of the matter is, they're all very much in line with each other. It's probably 70-30 hive mind, maybe more. It's not quite as bad as the District of Columbia, but it is bad. This is an area where Donald Trump won very few votes, even though he put up more votes than he did in 2016 in this area. A lot more votes. Biden had beat him considerably. Here is the one saving grace, potentially, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about Trump's effort to expand the map. There is movement in this area. Like, it is conceivable to me that people we may have polled 2 years ago in this area who were, still for Biden no longer are, even though they voted for him in 2020. And where do courts get their alleged jury polls from? Voter rolls. So it's an overlapping demographic. All right. So we'll see. Listen, it is still New York City. Bottom line. And the dynamics of how juries make decisions, are against him. There's bullying. That's really what it is. We call it bullying. Even if there is one or two people who are inclined to give Trump or inclined to acquit Trump, they will absolutely come down on you hard. Now, there is a history of New Yorkers not liking overzealous prosecutors. We saw that with the case of Vince McMahon. So I don't know. We'll see. But let's get Trump's reaction before we bring on our guest.
Are you going to testify? I have a gag order as to that first question. As you know, they've taken away my constitutional rights, so I'm not allowed to answer that question. This has never happened in this country before. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous case. I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at Greg Jarrett this morning. He went on. Take a look at Andrew McCarthy or Jonathan Turley or Mark Levin. It's like they say there's no case here. And yet the judges gagged me, and I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess, his total conflict. The judge is totally conflicted, and you ought to take a look at it. And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But I am allowed to say that the judge has a conflict that like nobody's ever had before. You ought to take a look at it. He's taken away my constitutional right to speak. I was in Miami this weekend, and reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking me. And I have to say I have a gag order. I can't speak about it. Never happened before, ever.
Yeah, so there's the reaction from the former president, and likely to be, by Judge Merchan's own admission, which we're going to get his statement in a second, likely to be the next president again. So let's bring on our guest, because I really want to bring him on and get his reaction, because this is insane. Let's get the legal perspective. All right, so joining us last minute, and we thank him so very much for it, is our good friend Daniel Street, lawyer, legal analyst, and of course, author of the best books about media hoaxes in the Trump era out there. And I highly, highly suggest you go to danielstreet.com and go get them. All right. So, and by the way, I think you even have it up for one of them up for free or something, Daniel. I'm serious. So people should go and read them, because I was talking earlier about obscurity and how they obscure these stories, but I'll shut up. Welcome back to Inside the Numbers.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
This is, from my perspective, somebody who's worked with the legal process in cases ranging from left-wing to right-wing causes, police brutality, picking juries in cases of police brutality, all the way to things like Kyle Rittenhouse. To me, it's insane that he would gag Donald Trump for pointing out the obvious, which is that this jury pool is obviously a biased jury pool against him. And things have changed in the polling. I don't know if that translates. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Jury selection was quick. Vardir was quick. I mean, this is his constitutional right to defend himself. He's in the middle of an election year. And what I really want to ask you about is, how the hell is this man allowed to stay on the bench when his daughter works for a firm that works for Joe Biden and they're raising money hand over fist, Daniel? They are raising money on this. My daddy's on the bench. We're going to get him. My daddy's on the bench. We're going to get him. This is like the worst of America. Honestly, it's not even America. I'm just going to let you take it away from there. How the hell is this guy allowed on the bench, Daniel? Why isn't there a process to stop this?
Well, Donald Trump's legal team tried to get the judge off the case. They filed a motion to recuse the judge. And for the reasons that, among others, that you described, the judge's daughter had her profile pic on her Twitter account, or her X account, was a picture of Donald Trump behind bars. And, she works for an outfit that raises money for Democrats, has raised somewhere around $90 to $100 million arguably at least, off of this particular prosecution, and had helped Adam Schiff, who is public enemy number one insofar as he and Trump's relationship with respect to Donald Trump. And so she worked with Schiff, or her company worked with Schiff, to raise money. So, yeah, clearly the judge should not be on this case. And that's just one of the reasons. I know that Trump's legal team filed the motion. They filed it twice, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The judge denied it both times, and they sought some appellate review of that and got no relief. So I think what it all boils down to is, and this varies a little bit from one state to the next, and even in the federal system, but pre-final judgment appellate review of trial court decisions in criminal cases are very limited. And that's why we see, like, for instance, if you take the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, and he's prosecuting President Trump in two separate federal indictments, one in D.C. that you were talking about earlier, one in Florida that you were talking about earlier. He prosecuted the former governor of Virginia and, got a conviction against and ruined the man's political career.
Yes.
And then ultimately the Supreme Court reversed the whole thing 9-0, unanimous reversal. But what happens is these cases get steamrolled to trial in front of a judge, or whether it's a conflicted judge or not, they get steamrolled to trial. And then later on, courts get the opportunity to review the errors. And so you'll see that criminal defendants are a victim of that process many, many times. It's just usually is not as high profile an individual getting railroaded.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the politics of this. And later in the show, we're going to talk about, I don't even think people realize what's going on behind the scenes. Trump's attempt to reach people that no Republican has reached and he appears to be reaching, and he's putting money behind it. And, I think that there are people out there, Daniel, who have been suffering under this system for a long time, getting railroaded, these shotgun charges from the prosecutor to try to make some crazy conspiracy stick, but he needs all of these different charges to make the case, to tell the story. And there's just, especially if you don't have the money, there's no way to fight back. You got to fix it after the fact, after your family's been ruined, after you're bankrupt, after you maybe do some time in jail. You got to fix it after the fact. And that is not just. That is not just at all. And I think that people are finally starting to, I think they made the guy relatable to a lot of these people. I really do, because that's what we hear all the time. Let me ask you this, because before I play the clip, I want your take on this guy threatening to throw him in jail over this kid. This is over violating a gag order, Daniel, which is like, you could cut a $10,000 check every Monday. Here you go, judge. I'm not listening to you. You know what I mean? This is for him to say this and then pretend like, I don't want to do it. You're a former president. He's so full of crap. Does anyone even believe that? This is all so they could slap this on him. They think this is good for them, or so. I'm serious. They think this is good for them. What do you make of him threatening to throw the former president in jail?
Well, that'll put the issue at the forefront, because one of the questions that's pending both in this case and in the other cases is, can anybody put President Trump in jail, for the simple reason that he has Secret Service protection, and the Secret Service, there's rules and regulations that apply to that, but they come in and take over because they're obligated to provide for the president's security. So I'm not entirely sure whether the president can even be put in jail, but that would bring it to a head. It would also, I think, give Trump something that he hasn't been able to get, and that's immediate review from a higher court, because he will have the opportunity to present the matter to a higher court if he gets incarcerated. So
that's interesting. I didn't think
and also would have, if they interfere with the Secret Service, or if the state, or in this case local corrections officers interfere with the Secret Service, they'll wind up in federal court, getting the federal court to rule over all of those issues. So I really, look, if I had looked at my crystal ball over the last couple of years, I have to confess, and I'll confess to you as a friend and someone that's had me on many times, I would have been wrong about a lot of things, because I didn't think this case would ever even get to trial. It's just ludicrous. But I really don't, look in my crystal ball, I don't see him trying to actually incarcerate President Trump over this, because look, these prior restraints, First Amendment restraints against President Trump, are, in my view, just utterly unconstitutional. And let's also consider what's been going on. The judge has gagged President Trump from talking about the case, from talking about the witnesses, from talking about the goings on in court, from talking about the court staff. Remember the law clerk, from talking about, which is another reason why the judge should probably be recused, and then talking about the judge's daughter and her politics. But at the same time, you've got a witness, and in fact, a material witness who's the linchpin of the prosecution's case. That's Michael Cohen.
Yep.
Going on social media and on podcasts, like commentating about the day's events in the trial. And this is, look, I can only assume, I was not able to determine whether the judge put all of the witnesses under what we call the rule of sequestration. Surely he did in a criminal case. You don't have witnesses going out talking to the press every day about what happened in the trial. Ordinarily, the witnesses are not even supposed to know what happened in the trial. They don't get to watch other people's testimony. They don't get to talk to other people about the case. That's what the rule of sequestration is all about. So that we get the person's untainted testimony. They can only talk to the lawyers. And you've got Michael Cohen acting like a legal analyst, going over what happened during the course of the day. How that guy would be allowed to testify after that is just unfathomable to me. That's going to be reversible error right there. So, the whole thing is just, it's like a Twilight Zone alternate universe they've got in Manhattan, where they get to do whatever they want. It's insanity. And now I will say this, politically, ironically, I think the gag orders actually helped Trump. And the reason for it is because without it, Trump would just be dropping caustic bombs all over the place. And I think it's actually better when he doesn't do that.
Yeah, I honestly, I totally agree with you. And I was reading an article in Politico last week, and I just didn't get a chance to read it on the show, but it was about Susie Wiles, who really runs the show over at the Trump campaign. And she is a very disciplined player. And this time it seems you can see it, right? But there's also things that are going on that are making her job easier, which is what I was thinking when I was reading that article. Trump is gagged, right? And yeah, he's breaking the gag order, but not as, like you said, it would be caustic bombs.
Oh,
man.
it would be.
My God.
You know how he is. I mean, he would just he would be slicing and dicing all of them for half an hour before trial, at every break, and at the end. I don't think, the important part to remember is the court is supposed to protect the defendant, the accused rights, not the government's.
Right.
So,
And this is what, when this charge came down, and I know we all mocked it. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I did say, and I thought immediately, I just am familiar with this system over there. And they would not have done this if they didn't all, and I hate to say this and portray this system this way, but it is the way it is. The prosecutors know each other. The judges know each other. Everybody knows each other. It is a society, folks. This was all hatched out before. And they would not have brought this stuff and not have tried the things they tried if they didn't get the wink and the nod from the judge. I'm sorry. It's just true. That's the way it goes. They're going to make, the state attorney, well, in this case, the district attorney is going to pick up the phone. He's going to, test the water. He's going to feel how things are. It's dirty. It's disgusting backroom stuff. I'm not sure. I'm going to play a clip real quick. I don't want to get your reaction to it because on the politics of it, I think they're so scared of the video that I just played before with Steve Kornacki. I think they're so scared. And look at that Pew poll. They love Pew. All right. Trump is up. Could you imagine Trump being at just about at 50, beating Biden? Hispanics only Biden +4. There, by the way, for people who don't know this, in the media and the polls and the political class, Pew Research is like their gold standard for polling Hispanics. So if Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, comes out with 6 polls in a row showing that Hispanics are single digits, they'll blow it off. But if Pew Research comes out with it saying he's right, this is really tight. They are like split evenly. That poll is of 7,000 people. That will shake their boots. So I'm thinking, like, people are like, hey, they're not going to throw him in jail. They won't try to throw him in jail. I think, honestly, the only thing keeping them from doing it now is because I do think they're so afraid they're acting irrationally. And I think the only reason they're doing it is because of the logistics of it. Like you mentioned, how do you do that, right? So let me play this clip. It's Andy McCarthy, who I'm not a huge fan of, but let's see what he's like. He's kind of like shrugging it off. And I would caution people, Andy is living in an old world, an old era. This is a new age, Andy, and you better take your head out of your ass, buddy, because these people are coming for blood. Let me play this, and I'm gonna get your reaction.
Judge Merchan just said it's clear the $1,000 fine is not working. He said going forward, this court will have to consider a jail sentence. He then said, the last thing I want to consider is jail. You are a former president and possibly the next president, end quote. Andy, why don't we just start right there? Because he's going to assess the gag order yet again. The gag order stays, but he'll assess the fine. So I think you're up to 10, 11, maybe 14 grand. I don't know. I lost count. Andy, go ahead.
Bill, as I said to you last week, if I were Trump, I basically bring in a check for 10 grand every Monday and just say whatever I want. This is all politics at this point. I don't think the judge, I mean, it's easy for me to say because he's not going to put me in custody, but I don't think the judge, because of the politics of this, it would be disastrous politics for the Democrats, for the judge to put former President Trump in jail over this. So he'll continue to fine him. And as long as that's what it is, I think Trump should just pay the fine and otherwise say what he wants to say.
All right, let me get your reaction to that. You think that's realistic, Daniel?
Yeah, I think Mr. McCarthy's probably right. And I will tell you, I very rarely disagree with with Andrew McCarthy. I follow him very closely, and I think he's right because the politics of, number one, the practicalities, and pragmatically speaking, trying to put President Trump in jail for violating what everybody, including the judge, knows is a ludicrous gag order in the first place, is going to explode not on the court and on the Democrats and on the DA. So I expect more of this kind of cat and mouse game and mostly fines. What I would expect is for the judge to start making the fines more substantial.
That was going to be my next question. So do you think the judge is just going to start making them? How big could they get, Daniel? How big could they get?
I have to tell you, I honestly don't know. I mean, I've never seen a criminal defendant, never seen a criminal defendant gagged in this manner and then fined for it. I mean, I've never seen it. So, at some point though, if you look at federal constitutional law, at some point, a fine becomes a criminal violation or a criminal imposition or a criminal penalty.
Right.
And the question is, when would that happen? And then you've got President Trump, who's not your average defendant. If the judge fined me $25,000 or $50,000, it's going to put a much bigger hitch in my get along than it would President Trump's. So honestly, don't know. I'd be surprised if the judge went over $100,000 for a violation, but he's going to start going up. That's my prediction.
I'm recalling a case, and you would know it if I said it. I don't know if I should, but let everyone use their imagination. I'm recalling a case of police brutality that I worked on. All right. And it was police brutality against minorities, one in particular. And it was a very clear-cut case of police brutality. I mean, there was video of it, and normally, somebody like me, I would defend this department and the leader of this department, who's well known, but they were beating on black men, bro. I mean, that's it, so the families are coming out on a daily basis with the lawyer, with the civil rights attorney that hired me, and trashing the jurisdiction, like on camera in front of every outlet that was willing to take a quote from them. It was never even considered that the judge would gag us. Like, it was never considered that, oh, well, you're pushing hard now, talking about the jurisdiction and the potential jury pool like this is, you're walking a line here. That was never even brought up, Daniel. It was, oh, be careful. You can't trash the potential jury pool. You'll get gagged. That's part of a defendant's right to defend themselves, right? To mount their defense, that this is unfair. Imagine telling civil rights leaders, Michael McDonald, one of the last people to be lynched in this country, was lynched in Alabama. Imagine telling the family of Michael McDonald that they were not allowed to go to the camera and express their concerns about his murderers being prosecuted fairly because of the jurisdiction that they were prosecuting him in. Could you imagine? And by the way, they got him. All right. So, but that didn't stop Jesse Jackson. That didn't stop the McDonald family. And that was their right to go to the microphone and say, I think the police and I think the judge and I think the district attorney are going to be easy on them because they're KKK. Like, that was their right to do that. I can't find another comparable example, brother. I just can't.
I can't either. And ordinarily, what happens with respect to criminal defendants in these situations, ordinarily the gag orders are on the lawyers. Okay. Because the court does have the authority. I mean, lawyers have ethical obligations not to make presidential public statements. Now, most of the time in these high profile cases, they do it anyway and nobody says anything. But the courts could come in and say, okay, look, lawyers, you can't talk about this. No more talking about the witnesses, no more talking about the law or whatever. Even the court's ability to do that is limited. But in most criminal cases, the lawyer's keeping the client from talking. Usually we don't want a lawyer doesn't want his client who's charged with a crime going out to media and making public statements because if he said the wrong thing, then it's going to be introduced in the trial itself. So this is really, really just uncharted territory for everybody. But I'm unaware of now maybe there's a case I've missed, but I'm unaware of any analogous case, any analogous situation where a politician, a criminal defendant, has been gagged in his own trial. I mean, no. If there's a case on it, I haven't seen it.
Can you, I don't know how much time you got. I got to take a quick commercial break here. Can you stick around? It's all right if you can. I understand.
I can.
You can? Okay, cool. Give me, give me 90 seconds and we'll be right back. We got to pay the bills. This is why I always say, if you like videos, like them, share them far and wide. It helps and the subscriptions certainly matter. All right. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more with Daniel in a second, folks. All right, listen, we can go through the spiel. We know it. First it was Disease X in January when the globalists hosted a panel featuring big pharma leadership in Davos, and the foreshadowing is real. Now the CDC and the mainstream media are stoking fears around H5N1, which is bird flu, claiming that not only have tens of millions of livestock been infected, but also that the virus is making the leap to humans through milk, through steak, through salads, you name it. Gain-of-function research on avian flu at the same time. News headlines are being littered with outbreak scares. If we learned anything through this awakening, it's that there's no such thing as a coincidence. The Atlantic on April 30th, they reported that the U.S. is somehow over and underreacting to bird flu at the same time. And whatever that means, being prepared is always the way to go. Whether it's lockdown or another forced jab, it's pretty clear that the groundwork for a 2.0 appears to be in the works. Well, whether it materializes in November, we'll see. Will it be the November surprise, October surprise? Luckily, the chief medical board at the wellness company has been closely watching the avian flu outbreak over the last few weeks. And guess what? They have our back. All right. As usual, it's the only of its kind. This prescription drug contagion emergency kit provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for bird flu, COVID-19, and other respiratory illnesses. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, a Z-Pack, Tamiflu, budesonide, along with a nebulizer, so you can rest knowing that you have emergency meds on hand, along with a guidebook for safe use. Every American should have at least one of these kits in their homes. Avoid the long wait times and the price of the hospital, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. The link is in the description. Go to twc.health/TPP, twc.health/TPP, and grab your emergency contagion kit right now. It's peace of mind, folks. Peace of mind in a chaotic world. One more time, twc.health/TPP. That'll get you 10% off and free shipping at checkout. Kits are only available in the USA. I love these kits, Daniel. Love them, love them, love them. Got to tell you. I think that, Laura and I, as soon as we saw those, I'm not going to pitch something that I don't personally think people need. I really do think everybody needs those kits. I really do. And before we get back to business at hand, everyone needs to go to danielonstreet.com, download the free book that he has up on the website right now, and then purchase the other ones if you like them, which you will. I guarantee you will. His latest book is literally on my nightstand and has been for about 6 months. All right. I refer to it constantly. It is written so much differently than those like journalist, I want to be a celebrity book. I don't know what the hell to call these things. Daniel, you know what I'm talking about. The journalist Pundit who writes these books. Like, I could name one right now, but I don't want to insult him. He's an all right guy, but I mean, mediocre work at best about the Russia collusion hoax, and so many others about mediocre work at best about COVID. The hoax, the prosecution of the media by Daniel Street in these books is unlike anything you'll read anywhere else. He does it entertaining. It's entertaining, but also because you're a lawyer, Daniel, that's why it's so effective, because you're just like, bam, 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 fact pattern, fact pattern, fact pattern, which I opened the show with explaining. The media is so good. That's where their power still lies. Would you agree with that, Daniel? Their power, even though they're not trusted anymore, their power lies in the ability to obfuscate, to confuse, and to blur the fact pattern of stories. And then people, whether it's that they're too busy, or maybe the few who still trust them, or they just are lazy. If we're being honest, they don't dig into the full story. Would you agree that's where their power still lies? As somebody who's written extensively about this, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think the media makes a efficient use. The fake news media makes efficient use of what I like to call sensationalism.
Yeah,
they hit you with the headline. How many times? It's like in advertising. How many times do you see an ad and you're like, "Well, that's great," and you click on the thing and it's not what was advertised? Well, the media does that all the time, and they know that a lot of people are going to hear a 10-second soundbite. They're going to read a headline, and they're not going to realize that they were being lied to in the headline or the soundbite, and they won't figure that out until they get to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th paragraph of the article. Media does that all the time. It's like a bait and switch, and it's just in journalism instead of in advertising.
Yeah, it's not actually what they say and claim in that headline. That's not actually what it is or what happened. And it always does. You're right. It's always buried. The lead is buried. And I just don't know. The only guard against that is that people just get smarter and don't trust them. But I don't really know that there's a better way if you want to have a First Amendment right to free speech. I just think that we should go back. They get catfish, Laura said. I think that we should just go back to the concept of party media, which is a period in American history when everyone knew that media, come on, let's cut the crap. They're not objective. They're not impartial. Right. They have an agenda. They're pitching from one side. And back then, Americans were smart enough to understand that. And they read both sides. And that was healthy. And then they would make up their minds. And that was called a debate. But here, they're trying to rig the debate, because they're trying to pretend as if this is impartial. And if you don't agree with what they're saying, then somehow you're like out there, you're a kook, you're a conspiracy theorist. On the Sunday shows, I don't know if anybody else noticed the theme. It was whether it was Doug Burgum, the governor, who was running but then bounced and supported Trump in North Dakota, or it was Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas. It was right back to, what do you mean the election was rigged? You don't really, but do you know that Bill Barr said there's no evidence of that? Right back to this now. And Doug Burgum is like, guys, come on, cut the crap. The election was changed in different states. He tried to explain to them there were more ballots that went out than there are legitimate registered voters, which are true. In places where they had unsolicited ballots sent out, mail-in ballots that was unsolicited, there were people who got ballots that were not their ballots because those people are not legitimately registered to vote anymore. Here's one right here. Look at that. Where's the California one? Is it gone? Oh, no, there it is. There's California. This is not one of these ballots belongs to that person at that residence because those people don't live there anymore. They probably moved to Phoenix, which, by the way, they did. And they got 2 ballots at their address, their new address in Phoenix, one that belonged to them and one that belonged to the person who lived in the house a year before. So, to pretend like this is what the media does. So where do you, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say one of the things I've been working on for the last couple of weeks is an article about some of the lawfare being waged against Sidney Powell. And that led me to go back to some of the election challenges and go refresh my memory on some of the, if I may borrow from our friend Robert Barnes, the election fornication that went on in Michigan, and it's unbelievable. And and all I've done for purposes of that article is go highlight some of the obvious errors and obvious problems. And you could do a deep dive and go in a lot deeper on it. But really simple things like sending an absentee ballot application to everybody in the state. That's what they did. And you had 3.3 million people cast absentee ballots. And at the same time, you had the Secretary of State who had really just conjured up the idea of sending absentee ballots to everybody or absentee ballot applications to everybody. And then you had 3.3 million or 57% of the people that cast ballots cast an absentee ballot. And at the same time, the Secretary of State goes in and radically loosens the signature verification requirements. And ultimately, the courts ruled that was illegal, But so you had 15,600 out of 3.3 million ballots rejected. And only about 10 or 12% of those were because of signature verification issues. And the signature verification alone should have invalidated 4 to 6% if you look historically. Fulton
County, 7%. That's their historic rejection rate. Gwinnett County is usually around 12 or 14%. In the state of Georgia, I'm talking about, just in the state of Georgia. Yeah. Yet somehow we massively expanded the use of mail-in balloting and the rejection rates were nil.
Yeah, we're not really negligible.
It doesn't make any sense. Anyone who does what I do, you don't even have to do what I do. It's just it's common sense. But if you're like trained in any of these mathematics, that is, of course, extremely unlikely, especially since it's the first time these states adopted these policies in many of these areas. They didn't expand mail-in balloting like this. They're not even equipped to do so, Daniel. That's the truth of it too. They were never even equipped to do that. And yet They took it on, and many only had 60 days, 90 days at best to get their act together to prosecute these elections in such a new fashion. And by the way, Jocelyn Benson, I'm still waiting for the signature affidavits that basically state that if you were getting an absentee ballot at another address that does not belong to you, right? And you're saying, listen, I need my ballot sent here instead. You can do so in a state like Michigan if you sign an affidavit saying it's me, it really is me. I'm living with a friend or something right now. I no longer live there. I need this to be sent here because these addresses were dubious at best. All right, like I'm being generous when I say that you're not getting a ballot at a PO box or that randomly belongs to somebody who knows. You're not getting an absentee ballot at like a FedEx drop-off center. Like, I mean, the crazy stuff, whatever it was, UPS. But, never, she's supposed to by law keep them on file for 2 years. She never gave them. She never gave them up. We even hired a fraud investigator to try to get them, and she never gave them up. She just stonewalled us and then just started patting. And by the way, the day after we made that request, submitted that request, is when Politico came after us. Not Politico, PolitiFact. The day after. As if Jocelyn Benson picked up the phone and said, they're on to me, go smear them.
Yeah, right. Well, look, the reality is they sent these absentee ballot applications in Michigan out to every registered voter. And look, we know because there were Senate hearings about it. Even the Rhino Senate committee in Michigan said this is rife for fraud because they had so many constituents who were getting ballots from people that didn't live there, ballots for people that moved, ballots for people that were dead, all sorts of things like that. And the thing about it is,
unbelievable.
The thing about it is that people have to remember is that if the person didn't actually vote, okay, then those are the easiest ballots to fraudulently cast.
Yep.
It's all you need for that is to have access real time to the various different clerks or whichever particular clerk you're worried about, have access to that clerk's data. Now we know in Wisconsin, in a couple of jurisdictions, that Democrat activist organizations had that access. I haven't been able to determine that they had that access in Michigan. But
in Wisconsin, they did. I know.
In Green Bay, they knew who had not voted in real time. And I mean, this is just unconscionable that, and look, the thing about it is, if you ever want to know if signature verification is being done legitimately or not, there are studies that the handwriting experts have done about how their signature can change over time. A certain percentage of people, much higher than the failure rate or the rejection rate in most of these states in 2020, should be rejected just for that reason.
Yeah.
Not that it's an illegitimate vote, is that the person's signature's changed and doesn't match the qualified voter file. And so we've got rejection rates that are lower than that. In fact, considerably lower than that. So it's just, look, it was Katie bar the door, what the Democrat fraud machine's been looking for decades. They got it in spades in 2020.
What you just said too is, how those votes that aren't cast, that they act like this stuff doesn't happen. Daniel, there was just another indictment in New Jersey. There was an indictment, a massive one, right before the 2020 election in Philadelphia that involved a former congressman, election judges. And by the way, the Atlantic County indictment for New Jersey also involved former elected officials, election judges, folks who are in charge of saying, okay, that ballot is valid. Okay, so there were ballot stuffing operations with ballots belonging to people who did not cast votes. So if you have the data that Daniel is talking about, all right, this ballot was requested, or maybe it wasn't requested at all, and it is an easy bounce, low-hanging fruit for people to go out and stuff. And that is what they were doing, taking the votes of people who did not vote and stuffing the ballot box with them. They act like this stuff doesn't happen. Like, you could go to justice.gov right now and type in their search bar, and you will find a ton of them, folks. It happens all the time. And to pretend like it doesn't is like an insult to everybody's intelligence. You know what doesn't change over time? Your fingerprint. If we can use
Right.
our fingerprint or Face ID app to open up our iPhone, Daniel, I don't understand. And I'm somebody who hates databases. But guess what, guys? They got your fingerprints anyway. They also got your little feetsy prints too from the day you popped out. All right. So they got it. I mean, I'm not asking for a DNA swab here. I'm asking for a fingerprint. All right. I mean, Afghanistan and the purple finger is a more secure election than what we're dealing with in America right now.
Look, if you want to know how big a problem or how substantial a problem this idea or this issue about ballot applications and ballots going out to people that shouldn't, or to address they shouldn't, just go check out some of Jay Valentine's work using fractal technology, where they came in and analyzed the voter rolls, and now it's running on 26 states, and they've got, I don't want to make the number up in Michigan, it's tens of thousands of totally bogus voter registrations where there's hundreds of people registered at a hotel and an empty lot and all these sorts of things. And every one of those people got a absentee ballot application. And so all you had to do is be smart enough to go snatch up a bunch of these things and submit invalid applications for the absentee ballots, because they weren't using signature verification, not constructively, not in a material way, to weed out the illegitimate ones. That's the only thing that saves the process, other than the actual voter showing up on election day. The voter showing up on election day and, hey, somebody's cast an absentee ballot for you. And that happens all the time, as a matter of fact. But if they're smart about it,
right,
they do it in a way that where the detection rate's very, very low. So
let me ask you, coming up on the top of the hour again, gonna take another break here. Are you working on another book? Somebody was asking if you were working on another book. You are indeed, right? I mean, the last time you were on, we discussed this.
Yeah, I'm working on my book on election. What Robert calls fornication is the one that's actually most I'm focused on right now. But I got to tell you, Rich, my plan was to have it out before the election this fall, and I don't think that's going to happen, just because I've been sidetracked so much on all the lawfare, mostly being waged against President Trump. I'm not likely to finish it by then.
Yeah, that too, and you got to pay the bills. I mean, people. I've been dying to write another book, and with Robert, in fact, and I wrote it would have been called, which is so funny. You know what the title Robert and I were thinking of?
What's that?
The Emerging Populist Majority. And and then Gavin and Troy wrote theirs first. So I don't know what we would call it now, but I have my half, basically done. I mean, it's done. We talk about the political maturation of ethnic Catholics and this shift with Hispanics. I have to revise it because I was right. And it's written like I'm trying to predict it, before. And so, right.
Then it happened.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we could see it happening little by little, but my prediction is that soon we're probably going to get back to a 55-45 kind of margin. And that basically is where we are right now. So I would have to rehatch that. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to when you do get that out, and I know how life is. And so do the viewers, because they asked about it. So Jay had a question for you, and this is a good question, Jay. Really good question. Because and I imagine you do know this, where Daniel is from. What do you think about the change, rather sudden change, in Mike Johnson's behavior?
Yeah, that's it's been pretty stark. When he was elected as the speaker, we naturally here in Louisiana, Republicans had a lot of high expectations.
Yeah.
And then now, admittedly, our expectations were never going to be met because of the razor thin majority that the Republicans had. But to watch his about face, particularly on the Ukraine funding, and just a few months ago, the man was telling us we're not doing anything until we're going to shut down the federal government until they secure the border. And he's just about faced on all of that. Honestly, I could only speculate on it as to why it would be. I don't know. But I do know this. It seems like every elected politician, when they get the actual reins of government in their hands,
Yeah.
this is how they turn out. You know, it could, there's a lot of theories, but the intelligence community got to him, or, he's been paid off now. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm just as bewildered as the next guy.
I mean, I've seen it so much. And I've heard rumors, and anytime you hear rumors, unfortunately, like this, at least some facet of them is true or are true, could be plural. I'm going to go ahead and say they got something, because this is just a total about face. And like you said, reasonable expectations. You're not talking about a big majority here, even though, reasonable expectations, even for a Republican, because believe me, if Democrats only had a 1-seat majority, they'd still be governing like they're full bore. But this goes to why, and I guess I'll leave it there with you and I'll let you go. But this goes to why Trump is running. And we're going to talk about this in a second. I'm going to read a bunch of articles. This is why Trump's running ahead of them in 3 Senate races, in the generic ballot. He didn't do that. I mean, there was a few things that you could argue he disappointed on, but it wasn't Trump himself. Like, let's go to the big one, immigration. For anyone who wasn't in the loop, doesn't know the backstory, he was promised a vote on his wall when they were done with campaigning for the House. Paul Ryan told him that it would cost him the House, and that he needed to just kind of wait, get the omnibus through, which he didn't want to sign, and get it done. And when they came back, whether they won or lost, whatever, they would still vote on that. And Paul Ryan screwed him. Paul Ryan flatly screwed him, looked in his eye and lied. So I can't think of too many other instances when Trump didn't do what he said he was going to do. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of the reasons that so many people are so loyal to President Trump. President Trump ran on a platform and immediately upon taking office did everything he could to implement that platform. And, you saw how the media just caterwauled about President Trump doing what he said he was going to do, because they expected him to about face and act like Paul Ryan would have.
Yeah.
But he didn't do it. So it's, look, at the end of the day, I always say, I've said it on your show several times, that the Democrats and Republicans are fortunate they have one another for the opposition, because if they had competent opposition, they'd get wiped out.
Yeah.
And it's a fact that the Republicans just repeatedly seize defeat from the jaws of victory. And,
so frustrating if you are one, and or if you just oppose the Democratic Party so much you hold your nose and vote Republican. It's so frustrating to watch year after year after year, because when you can simply, as a pollster, when you simply just ask people, Daniel, which comes closer to your view, and you go down the list on these questions, on these issues, they win all the time on almost everything. On almost everything. They cannot make that case because they don't stand up for what they believe in. And that's why you got to applaud people like President Trump, whether you love him or hate him. You got to applaud people like Bob Good, whether you love him or hate him. I was with Bob Good a couple of weeks ago, and he won his first election, 52% of the vote, and he went, to the wall when he got there, and he did what he said he was going to do. And people were like, the consultants came at him. What are you doing, Bob? You're in a slim district here. You don't have room for error. You can't do this. And he said, this is what I ran on. And they elected me 52%, whatever. They still elected me. So I'm going to represent that 52%. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, come hell or high water. He did, and he was elected with a bigger margin the next time. People reward you. Scott Walker was the same way. They reward you for being the person you said you were going to be. And we used to poll Wisconsin all the time, solid 5 to 7% who would say, I don't even really like Scott Walker. I don't like him on this. I don't like him on the union thing. I think he's a union buster. But you know what? I know where Scott stands, and I know what he's going to do as governor. I don't know this other guy. And I'm not sure I can trust him to do what he says he's going to do anyway. So I'm voting for Scott. And these were Obama voters, and which turned out to be the Obama, Walker, Trump voter. And just people reward you for being the person you say.
I just find that so neurotic,
No.
The Obama Trump voter, those people,
And
those, figure that one out.
If I didn't know so many of them, because I do, if I didn't know so many of them, it would confuse me more. And then also because we talked to them, they're just not overly partisan people.
Yeah.
Even though many of them may have strong views on certain issues, they're not overly partisan and they're not in the grind every day. So, they exist. They really do. There's people
Sure.
who will say, I liked Obama. He was, no drama Obama. He seemed like a cool cat to me. All right. Well, what about Hillary Clinton? Oh, I hate that woman. No way. I voted for Trump. So they're out there. It's really an incredible thing. But yeah, I already mentioned the website, but you got a great Substack too. Tell people where they can find you, Daniel, and follow you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah. The best thing to do is go to my website, danielrstreet.com. At danielrstreet.com, I have links to the free book. I have links to the book at Amazon. I have links to my social media, links to my Substack. And my Substack, which is a blog for those who aren't familiar with Substack, is free. So, and that's the best way to keep up with what I'm doing, on a regular basis. And that's it. The website's it's going to take you to everything that I've got going on.
Yeah, danielrstreet.com, folks. Link to the Substack is on there as well. I subscribe to Daniel Substack. It's great. You should definitely too. And again, it is free. So go check it out. Thanks so much for and this was last minute, folks, for those who don't know that and didn't hear me say it before. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time today, Daniel. Always the best, my friend.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And anytime. Daniel Street, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I subscribe to his Substack. It's super great. You should go check it out. His books are fantastic. And I have had people buy his books after me praising them up and down. You will not be disappointed. They're just amazing. And I guarantee you, I say this all the time because it's true. I guarantee you, you're going to read these books and say, oh yeah, oh my God, they did do that. They did say that. They did claim that. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable how misleading, whatever you want to call them. Why are they misleading? I'll leave the name calling to you, but it's unbelievable how truly dishonest and misleading these people are to the American public. And even though we all kind of know that, until you read a collection, but it's detailed. It's a very detailed, like I said, he's a lawyer who prosecutes a case against them. It's very detailed. Until you read it, you're like, wow. I mean, the scope really hits you. Wow. And by the way, because they did that, some nutcase who believed them went and shot the House Majority Whip and 4 other people. Insane stuff, man. Insane stuff. All right, let's take a 30-second break before we come back with another word from our sponsors, and then we're going to talk about some of the latest polls. I want to read at least 2 of these articles that I have going. I think one I'm going to read first because it piggybacks off of everything we've been talking about. Daniel does rock, Mary. He really does. Great guest. So much for coming on. All right, we'll be back. Let's take a 30-second cue for me to drink water, and we'll have a word from my sponsor. All right, folks, given everything that's happening in the world today, it is no surprise that people are looking for a safer place to invest their money. Stocks, they can be unpredictable. And let's face it, inflation, and we talked about it last week, can really impact the value of currencies, your investments, your retirement. That's why I want to talk to you about one of our sponsors, our new sponsors, Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely a company that you should check out. What I like about Freedom Gold USA is that they're all about helping you make smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So they offer free investment guides, consultations. They give you information you need to make confident decisions. Guess what? No pressure, no hard sell here. That's what makes them different. Also, what makes them different? Well, they guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver you can find. You'll know you're getting a solid deal, and you don't have to worry about extra fees. They offer free shipping and insurance on all orders. For those of you who've bought precious metals before, you know that's a big deal. Plus, you might even get some free silver on qualifying purchases, and they give you $500 in credits towards opening a gold or silver IRA. And it's a nice bonus. And here's the best part. Dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and hassle-free. And again, you will not get any pushy sales tactics. They're all about helping you reach your financial goals in a way that works for you. So if you want to learn more, I recommend giving Freedom Gold USA a call. The number's on the screen. The link is in the description. 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. Or check out their website. Use my URL, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Find out about their latest special offers and see what kind of deals you might qualify for. Let me give you that number one more time. Again, it is in the description. So is the URL, 888-279-3592. Or go to freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Don't wait. Give them a call. Secure your financial security today, your future today. All right. Let's see. Oops, just busted that down. I want to start with this one because it's about the lawfare, and then I want to go into some of the things that we're seeing the Trump campaign do, which unbelievably you're not seeing on the Fox Newses. Only if you're nerds like me and the folks at the decision desk who see this stuff and then are like, "Ooh, did you see this?" It's a big deal. It tells you people put their money where their mouth is. It matters. We can talk about polls all day, but the moves political candidates make certainly matter. All right, but let's put this up. I want to read this first because this was titled on RCP. Well, the title is Democrats Should Fear Lawfare Tactics Being Turned Against Them. But on RCP, I think they appropriately named it Biden Cannot Beat Trump in a Fair Fight. So in a fair election, Donald Trump's going to wallop him hands down. And that is what this lawfare is all about. Doing what they can to make it unfair. They can't pull. I maintain that while they can try another COVID 2.0, I maintain that there is not enough appetite out there. There aren't enough duped people out there. There aren't enough people who trusted them the first time, who learned who still have not learned their lesson. There aren't enough of them to pull what they pulled with COVID. So they need some kind of a hybrid model to rig the election. As Tom Cotton said on the Sunday show on ABC, it absolutely was rigged. And if you think otherwise, you're either lying to yourself or you're flatly stupid. I don't know what to tell you. The bottom line is we don't conduct elections like that in this country. Never have, never did before. This was novel, since we like to use that word now so much. You want to see something novel, look at how the election of 2020 was prosecuted. And Daniel and I were talking about that quite a bit when he was on in the last segment. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure they could do it again. So the lawfare is the goal here. All right. Former President Donald Trump is getting dragged through the courts via the lawfare charges manufactured against him. Oh, by the way, this is Douglas McKinnon. And seemingly millions of liberals and Democrats are ecstatic. Chaos, turmoil, and pain such as this can feel exhilarating when it's the other side, ox being gored. But what happens if, in but a few short months, it is their ox being gored, or they themselves? Will they cheer? Will they take to the streets in celebration? Of course not. They will scream out their innocence as they label their attacks partisan while demanding impartial justice. Stop. Let's remember they impeached Donald Trump because they said that it was essentially a crime to prosecute your leading political opponent. Remember? Even though what Donald Trump was doing was asking Zelensky about corruption. And in fact, Vladimir Zelensky brought up Rudy Giuliani first in that phone call and asked for Trump's help rooting out the corruption. That's what happened. And that turned into an impeachable offense. So of course they would act like this and worse. Unhinged partisan politics is quickly propelling our nation down the path of the normalization of the weaponization of law to take out political opponents, a path that is destructive to all. New York Times columnist David Brooks said the quiet part out loud recently while on Left of Center PBS NewsHour. That's a nice way to say it. Quote, if you look at democracies in decline, then it is a pattern that people in office use their power to indict and criminalize and throw in jail the people who were in office before them of the opposing party. And so we are a nation, democracy in decline. Is that you, Laura, or him? Okay. While he may have been trying to project such unethical and illegal behavior onto Trump and the Republicans, it perfectly defines what the Democrats are now trying to do to Trump. As I write this, the Biden White House, the Democratic National Committee, Democratic politicians, most of the mainstream media, most of academia, most of Hollywood seem thrilled that Democratic district attorneys, attorney generals, special counsels, and judges such as Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, Jack Smith, who, by the way, doesn't even have power to be appointed. Who the hell vested this authority in Jack Smith? Not the law. Arthur F. Engoron and Juan Merchan are seemingly working as one to bankrupt Trump, keep him off ballots, wound his campaign, or send him to prison. But what if that poisonous partisan shoe soon switched from a Republican foot to a Democratic one? Even with the endless lawfare being waged against Trump, more and more people are anticipating that he will be the next president of the United States. Then what? There has already been open speculation by conservative and Republican pundits that red state attorney generals, district attorneys, and prosecutors should employ the exact same tactics the Democrats are using to go after Trump to investigate Hillary Clinton, former President Barack Obama, and President Biden. Well, of course. And we've had them on our show. Mike Davis, Will Sharp, our friend Daniel Street, who was just on. They're on our show. They're on other shows saying that this will not stop until the shoe is on the other foot. Hillary Clinton gets away with everything. Joe Biden got away with everything. By the way, Hillary Clinton got away with everything because Donald Trump respected the norm or respected what was the norm for administrations, incoming administrations, dealing with their political opponents. And what is that norm? You move on. You leave the past behind. You don't prosecute presidents. Former President Barack Obama murdered a U.S. citizen. Murdered him. And his young teenage cousin, who was just in the truck with him. Hillary Clinton has a body count longer than OJ's rap sheet. Are you kidding me? Forget about all the violations, tax code, state and federal tax regulations when it comes to the Clinton Foundation, Clinton family charities. In New York, Schneiderman just let her violate them. What if Trump decided when he's president, I don't think we're going to do that anymore. I think we're going to revisit this stuff. Hillary obstructed justice when she bleach bit her server, when she smashed her Blackberries, when she deleted thousands, tens of thousands of emails that were under congressional subpoena. Barack Obama is a murderer. Barack Obama killed a U.S. citizen without a trial. Awolaki should have been arrested, brought back to the United States, and put on trial, not murdered. Tell me, folks, how does somebody go from being George W. Bush's Muslim outreach director to being murdered by a president a few years later? Many on the right believe former President Obama has a very interesting history in Chicago. I didn't even delve into that. That Hillary Clinton has been very interesting history with hard drives. That Biden has a very interesting history in Ukraine and China, especially under a GOP administration. How easy would it be for Republicans to either file charges against Clinton, Obama, and Biden, or to, quote, reinterpret the law, unquote, to rule against them? As counterintuitive or sacrilegious as it may seem to most on the left, Democrats need to defend Trump against this lawfare so they can protect themselves in the near future. Near. Notice he said near future. Whether they see... Are you saying something, Laura? Oh. Whether they see it or not, there is a massive storm brewing and coming their way. A storm whose clouds receded by the Democrats. So here's a crazy idea. Instead of creating a Frankenstein lawfare monster that'll surely turn against them, why don't the Democrats simply try to beat Trump fair and square at the ballot box? A very logical and American concept, which acclaimed ESPN sportscaster Stephen A. Smith recently articulated on his talk show. Quote, "To my liberal friends out there, all you're doing is showing that you're scared you can't beat Trump on the issues and the merits. And so for me, I find myself ashamed of the Democratic Party for their lack of competitive fervor. You had since 2016 to come up with somebody else, and you still can't do it? This is pathetic. It is pathetic. And there is no excuse for it whatsoever. Tens of millions of people see what extent the other side is willing to go through just to keep him out of office because they can't beat him on their own merits," unquote. Wow. Perfectly stated. For the last few years, it seems the game plan the Biden White House blessed was to preach that Trump was a, quote, threat to democracy, unquote, ad nauseum. But to do so, they also seem to completely buy into a Machiavellian, the end justifies the means strategy by rolling out anti-democratic and anti-American tactics. But again, that often corrupt strategy can quickly be turned against them. How much better to simply take up the challenge from Stephen A. Smith and attempt to beat Trump at the ballot box? Trust the will of the American people. Why does that option frighten them so? Doug McKinnon obviously is a political and communications consultant. He was a writer for the White House for Presidents Reagan and Herbert Walker Bush, and a former special assistant for policy and communications at the Pentagon during the last 3 years of the Bush administration. Well, why does that bother them so? Well, I think we're going to go ahead and answer that right now with a huge study from Pew Research. Laura, do you have something you want to say, Laura? Jump.
Yeah, I just want to say that was a very valid point, the self-preservation point, because let me tell you, after all of this hurt that they have put on the American people and those that support Trump, hell hath no fury like a mama bear. Will watch what the Americans do back. I mean, they really are digging a grave that they will never recover from. And that is why they're trying to put him in jail.
We will never recover from it, though, because this will be the tit for tat. Yep. This, Laura, go ahead. No, you go.
You go.
This will be the tit for tat that will never end. This is, and I hate to say it, but, Schmuck Boy actually said it right. And it's funny, he's on PBS trying to do what you have always said long before anyone ever said that Democrats project their projectors. Long before anyone ever said that it was politically cooler in the mainstream. I'm talking 25, 30 years ago. Laura used to say this. Democrats project onto other people the ugly that they are. So anytime they accuse you of doing something, it's because they're doing it to make them feel better about what they are. You colluded with Vladimir Putin to steal the election. You colluded with Russia to steal the election. When in truth, she colluded with Ukraine to try to rig the election. All right. So,
but that's how they are so intimate with the details and know so much.
Yes.
Because they are guilty of it.
Yes. They have such insight into the minds of these people who create these schemes because they're the ones who do it. Amen. And I'm telling you, though, Brooks. And I don't like Brooks. I don't like David Brooks. And it's not center. I wouldn't say left of center. I would say PBS is a radical left-wing news organization at this point. I just watched an interview on PBS with John Mearsheimer, and they had two other so-called foreign policy experts. It's ridiculous. One is a think tank that is essentially a lobbyist, a war machine lobbyist on Capitol Hill. The other one is an academic and an idiot. She can't argue a thesis in her she couldn't argue a thesis in her school. So instead, she would just go to a place where they don't care about that stuff. And you can either do that or you can go to the State Department. But I digress. They were unbelievable. It was unbelievable how ridiculous the talking points were when Mearsheimer was just trying to explain to them why they're wrong. And that's not the way the world works. That's not the way war works. That's not the way that they're just leftists who 20 years ago, they would have totally agreed with him. because they were claiming to be anti-war, anti-Iraq war. 20 years ago, they would have totally agreed with him. It's about the balance of power. It's about overextension. It's about unnecessary spending. It's about the inability to turn military might economic might into military might. They would have had all of those points on the board. But instead, because Joe Biden's the president and now they're the war party machine, they just have completely flip-flopped. So, I mean, they're not center PBS. They're totally nutcase liberals. Anyway, I digress. David Brooks is trying to project onto Trump and Republicans what Democrats are. And the one thing he got right was that's the end. This represents the end of a free society. He's right about that. He just is a hack who can't admit who's the one who's engaging in it first. But that tit for tat, and I hate to say it, it's got to be done, because you either fight or you die. You let the enemy destroy you. So there's no choice but to do that. But the weaponization of the law is the end of a free society. It's the end. We're not special, that we're going to be exempt from the laws of history. This is it. It's a wrap. It's a wrap for us after this.
And you can't break these laws to suit your needs and then say, okay, let's go back to the way it was now.
Yeah, right. And they will try exactly. And they will try to do that, especially if they're the loser, which is what Douglas McKenna is trying to explain. What happens, because rest assured, it's going to happen. And in case you haven't noticed, Trump is winning. He's ahead. I mean, yeah, you get the poll here and there. It's Biden +1. A Biden +1 is a loss for Biden. If he was to win the popular vote by 1, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. He needs 4 points. Could he do it with 3 under the right circumstances? Sure. But it is not likely. He needs 4 or better, like he had in 2020, or he's cooked. So the Biden +1 polls, you can just take and stick up your bum, because it doesn't matter. They're already Democratic leaning compared to the consensus, and it's not going to end up. So you're going to be crying about, and Laura, that's true, because they do it with the Electoral College, right? They loved the Electoral College when it benefited them. They loved it. In 2016, they were right back to defending the Electoral College when there was a period when there was a small chance that perhaps Donald Trump could win the popular vote, but he would still lose the Electoral College, because there's no way he really could carry Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan. It's not possible. So they were all for the Electoral College. In 2000, they hated it, because, of course, they won the popular vote, right? So they just go back and forth whenever they want. But the weaponization of the law is different. Once you cross that line, your enemies that you made, that you tried to ruin, destroy, imprison, kill, they're never going to put down that sword now. So it's the end. It's the end. Marcus Tullius Cicero.
You can't break the law and say, okay, we're ready to go back to the law, and think that the American people are going to respect the law, knowing that it doesn't apply for them, but it does apply for you.
That's right.
This is chaos. This is what chaos.
The law is not your concubine. You don't get to use it whenever you feel like it and then put it down. That's not how it works. And unfortunately, it's for all the talk about who respects norms and institutions. It's unbelievable. I mean, Douglas was 100% correct. You know what? Before we get into this last article, let's do the last read here and say 60 seconds, and then we're going to get into why, Laura. Why are they so scared? Because of the numbers, and regardless of who has Biden up by 1, who's got Trump up by 1, the numbers show very clearly, as McKenna is talking about, that Trump is likely the next president. So they should think very long and very hard about what it is they're doing. All right, let me take a real quick break. We'll come back and we will read that. I want you to check the thermostat. Is that possible? Can you do that? Thank you. I'm just thinking that I'm thinking that I'm totally right about this, Listen, bear with me when it comes to some of these pronunciations. I am no medical doctor. I tried to do my homework, but we shall see. So, AstraZeneca finally admitted in court that its COVID-19 vaccine could result in life-threatening blood clots. The Daily Mail, here we go, straight from it, quote, AstraZeneca acknowledged in a legal document submitted to the High Court in February that its vaccine, quote, can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. TTS is short for thrombosis with, are you ready? Thrombocytopenia syndrome, a medical condition where a person suffers blood clots along with a low platelet count. The admission by AstraZeneca is the first of its kind, and it surely will not be the last after the damage we've seen with these vaccines, what they can cause. The question now is, if you got it, what can you do about it? Fortunately, Dr. Peter McCullough and his team at the Wellness Company have been leading experts in treating long COVID and vaccine injury since early on their research, and has shown that nattokinase, right, has great potential in treating some of the most serious side effects. I'm getting buzzed. Does Dr. McCullough note that out of all the available therapies I have used in my practice, I believe that this and related peptides hold the greatest promise for patients at this time. This groundbreaking discovery led to the formulation of the Wellness Company's Spike Support Formula, which contains nattokinase. To date, tens of thousands of people have tried Spike Support, and the results have been nothing short of miraculous. Testimonies on their website speak for themselves, folks. Go check them out. Purchasing each element of Spike Support Formula could cost over $100, which means that the Wellness Company's unique formulation, you will save 35%. Spike Formula is the gold standard for combating spike protein, a daily supplement to help get you back to feeling your best. Reclaim your health. Go to the link in the description. It's the same one as the wellness kit, twc.health/TPP. Just scroll down. That code, TPP, will get you 10% off and free shipping. Again, twc.health/TPP. All right. Now, I never thought I'd be saying this, but oh my God, this poll by Pew is a disaster for Democrats. Actually, it's a disaster for Joe Biden. Because what was it, 134? I think if I speed this up, it's just that Pew, man, they'll go on forever. Maybe we'll just read, and I kind of like that about Pew, actually. That's one thing I do like, that it's a very thorough report that is released, okay, with their polls, which I wish I had nothing else to do but write reports like that, because they don't. I could write days of reports. There's so much in our polls that I would like to cover and just don't have time. But I trust that you guys are watching the show and educating yourselves enough to know how to read beyond what, even we go over on Inside the Numbers. All right, so here it is, a tight race. As they very well know, if the popular vote is even Trump +1 like this, with Trump just below or above 50, it's not a tight race. Not in the Electoral College, it's not. Sorry. All right. Voters are broadly critical of both Biden and Trump. About half of voters say that if given the chance, they would replace both candidates on the ballot. Listen, this is why I was telling you about ignoring idiots who don't know how to consume election results. Primaries are the most resistance-heavy, activist electorates you could get. If it's true that half of voters say they would want different candidates, then how are they nominated again? The answer to that is very simple. Not everybody votes in primaries, and they're not representative of the general electorate. So what does this tell you? It tells you Biden has a real problem here, because Trump has got love. He's got a whole lot of love. And those people are going to come out and vote for him anyway. So if there's this overheated sense of, I wish I had a different choice, Biden runs the risk of those people just simply not showing up to vote. But it doesn't matter because, well, let me read. As the 2024 presidential race heats up, American voters face a similar set of choices as they did 4 years ago, and many are not happy about it. Well, that's not true. All right. This is not a similar choice. While the election is still more than 6 months away, a new Pew Research Center finds that the presidential race is virtually tied. 49% of registered voters favor Donald Trump or lean toward voting for him, while 48% support or lean toward Joe Biden. Let me just say this real quick, folks. Here's the kicker. If these numbers are anywhere, and we're talking the demographics of them, which I'm going to give you in a second, if they are anywhere near accurate, this would not be a close race. Not at all. Okay. That is just the sheer fact of it. And we're going to look at some of those demographics in a second here. Actually, some of them are right there, but really has to do with where they at least point out where Trump has the advantage and why. But I want to take you a little bit more deeper and look some of the demographics. A defining characteristic of the contest is that voters overall have little confidence in either candidate across a range of key traits, including fitness for office, personal ethics, and respect for democratic values. Where Trump has the advantage, more than a third of voters say that they are extremely or very confident that Trump has the physical fitness and mental fitness needed to do the job of president. Far fewer say the same of Biden. At 15%. Are at the least very confident in his physical fitness. 21% are extremely or very confident in his mental fitness. Oh my God, that's awful. Majority say they are not too or not at all confident in Biden's fitness and mental or physical and mental fitness. Where Biden has the advantage, more voters are extremely or very confident in Biden than in Trump to act ethically in office. It's not that. It's an 8-point difference. And while 38% say that they are at least very confident in Biden and respect the country's democratic values, fewer, 34. See how close it is now? They're acting like this is a big gap. It's 4 points. This protecting democracy, protecting the norms and the values of our democracy. Biden used to have a huge lead here. He now has a 4-point lead, and it's only 38-34. It is not a vote of confidence. This is a sampling error. The survey was conducted before the start of Trump's hush money trial in New York City. I don't think anybody gives a damn. I really don't. Because as the Suffolk poll found, people don't care, folks. They don't care. Among racial, and we'll find out if they care about that actual felony, felon title. We'll see. Older voters and those, oh wait, I missed it. Sorry. The state of the race. The new Center survey of 8,709 adults, which includes 7,166 registered voters, conducted April 8 to 14th, finds large divides in voters' candidates' preference by age, education, race, and ethnicity. That's actually not true. Laura, they are doing their damnedest. They're double damnedest to spin this as a close race and not that bad for Joe Biden.
I think it's their only option, though, really, because they don't have a replacement for Joe Biden.
Yes. And somebody had asked that. I'm glad you said that, because somebody had asked that before. And the fact of the matter is, it's too late. Somebody had asked, essentially, is there a way to get, to still replace Joe Biden? And I'm telling you, there is not. All right. Is it technically possible? Sure. It's just like, folks, though, people are in. They're in on it, and that's a wrap. It's not going to change. Let me see if I could I'll hold it here and I'll read it to you as I go. I have the numbers that change. I guess they don't, but here we go. White voters. Are you ready? White voters are actually a little bit more Trumpy than they were in 2020. If you look at the poll, white voters favor Trump 56-42, which is about a 14-point margin. The exit polls had it at a 16-point margin. The voter valid, or 13. The voter, I always flip this. Either way, the voter validated was 16. The exit polls were 15, 13, or it could be vice versa. I think the exit polls may have overstated Trump's lead with white voters, according to the voter validated survey. But, there it is. Roughly 3/4 of black voters, 77%, support Biden. 18% support Trump. That is a doubling of support if you believe the voter validated survey. The voter validated survey gave Trump 9% nationally of the black vote. That's it. So, if you would believe that, that's a doubling of support. And I have been telling you that sampling errors for subgroups are higher, but it is not unreasonable to think that Trump can get between, 15 to 22%. There have been instances of when we have seen changes statewide, nonetheless, or Senate races. Rubio won almost 20% of the black vote running for U.S. Senate in Florida. So there are instances where we have seen this. 77% is abysmal. It's abysmal. And he will not win with 77% of the black vote, folks. Especially not if Trump is still winning whites by 14. Not going to happen. Hispanic voters, we're not even considering yet. And here we go. Are you ready? And I've told you this before. The white-black trade is as follows. For every point that you lose in support, if you're a Republican, among whites, you must make it up sixfold among blacks. So if you got 9% in 2020 and you won whites by 14%, if you're only going to win whites this time by 13%, then you need at least 15% of the black vote to call it a wash. He's doing that. And that doesn't account for the shift among Hispanics. That is, if everything else is equal, remains consistent, remains flat. It's not. Hispanic voters are more evenly divided. Only 52% favor Biden, 44% back Trump. Asian voters, they favor Biden over Trump, 59 to 36. We found the same, Republicans, Trump, he's making some headway with them. But the fact of the matter is, Asian voters are a tough nut to crack still. Okay. So for that 77, point lead, that comes right now to a 77% support among blacks. That comes to a 61-point margin for Biden in this poll. And that sounds huge. Except his margin in 2020 was 84%, not 61%. He better hope to hell sampling errors for subgroups are real high, even with their large sample. Hispanics, now that's only Biden plus 4. In 2020, it was Biden plus 21. You're going to get into the gap between ages, but if you're under 30, Trump leads by 5. Biden carried the under 30 crowd by almost 25%, 25 points, or 24. It was, excuse me. This is a dramatic loss in support. And, that's what happens when you cut 4 points off. It's 5. That's a 5-point swing. Pew Research, I don't recall what their final 2020 poll was, but I will look it up now. 270. Let's go, because I think 270 to win aggregates them. I don't know whether RCP does anymore. I know they overstated Biden, I think, but we're going to find out. It looks like, is that Pew? No, that's the research company. That's totally different. Bear with me. No way. I mean, I knew they overstated Biden, but I didn't know they overstated him this much. Are you ready? Biden plus 10. So that would represent an 11-point swing since their final 2020 poll. Laura's laughing in the other room because, of course, that didn't happen. Biden won the popular vote by a little over 4. So that's a huge swing. Let's pretend they didn't really have a bias. Okay? Let's pretend past is not prologue and we cannot expect them to have a Democratic-leaning bias this time around. That nevertheless is a 5-point national swing to Trump over the popular vote from 2020. So, what does that mean? If he got a 5-point national swing, you don't think he's going to win the Electoral College? Even if his popular vote lead is only 1 point? I think you'd be dreaming if you think that. Dream, dream, dream. Right, I hear you in the other room. Dream. Dream, dream, dream.
I'm sorry. It's just so
all I want to do.
Crazy.
It's nuts. Of course, he's going to get whipped. He's going to get, as my son likes to say, which he got me saying, he's going to get mollywopped. Mollywopped. He won across a few states by 40,000 votes. If the national mood has swung 5 points, 5, not 11 like their polls, 5. Let's just go let's do apples to oranges just to be, generous to Joe Biden. Let's pretend Pew did not have a 6 point overstatement of support for Joe Biden in 2020. Let's just pretend that for a second and let's give it to them. A 5-point swing is devastating. It means the polls in North Carolina that he's going to win by 5 to 7 points are right. It means the polls in Georgia that he's up 5-6 points are right. It means the polls in Arizona that he's up 5-6 points are right, because Arizona is an R+2 state. Nevada, it's right. There could be some surprise, where he doesn't win it, but it doesn't matter, because if that's happening right there, he's already won. You understand? He has already won. All right. So with that in mind, I'm not going to get to the other one. I do really want. So listen, I'm going to read this to you, because if I don't get to the other one, then that's all right. This is from the decision desk. We're going to read down a little bit. This is interesting, though, for those who don't know, and I'm sure many of you don't, because you're probably not in this class, but Trump was just talking. He had this event, and at this event, you had surrogates, campaign advisors, strategists, obviously trying to raise money. It's in Palm Beach, Florida. It was a retreat, basically. Retreat for potential donors and already supporters. And they made the pitch that they're going after some of these states hard that they did not win last time, and which have not been won by a Republican for a while. They believe that Trump, with the fractured party ticket, that Trump could carry Virginia. All right. They're certainly more bullish on a state like Minnesota, where he came very close last time. In 16. And then last time he lost it by 7 with mail-in voting, but it moved generally with the nation as a whole. Right. It was Hillary +2. The country shifted by 3 points, and it was Biden +7. Very close. All right. Anyway, he's over there making the pitch that he could, with the right amount of money, effort, etc., he could take these other 2. Let me just read this, because with that in mind, let me read what Decision Desk wrote in a recent newsletter about this effort to reach out to Black voters and Hispanic voters. We just, think about the Pew Research poll. I mean, obviously, right? If you were Trump, you would do this too. I would do more, frankly. But he's got to make good with his resources, because they are indeed trying to bankrupt him. So I get that, but I would go all in on this strategy. I really would. Anyway, one of the debates that has been playing out for months, years really, involves the ability of Donald Trump to appeal to Black voters, and in particular, men. There is no shortage of research, punditry, and polling about this question, to which we won't have a definitive answer until November. Fair, very fair. But there are other signs we can pay attention to, and one of those is radio advertisements. Television and streaming audiences can be segmented, of course, but radio remains a platform where for much less than the cost of television. The list of what are called urban format radio stations is pretty long, and it offers campaigns a way to deploy targeted messages that often don't get the attention of video advertisements do. Last week, I saw a $2.7 million ad buy independent expenditure from Make America Great Again, Inc., a pro-Trump super PAC. Most of that spending went towards television ads and direct messaging, mail messaging. But more than $200,000 went to radio ads in Georgia, and another $100,000 in Michigan, and $77,000 in Pennsylvania. I think I would disagree with how they allotted that money. I'm just saying that. Back in March, Inside Radio reported that MAGA Inc. PAC was targeting black voters with its radio ads. And via that story, I spotted the Super PAC SoundCloud account, which has all of 5 followers. Currently, there are just 2 radio spots posted there, and both seem designed to appeal to black voters. The most recent one, called Lecture, uses a scenario of a woman canvassing for Joe Biden, trying to convince a skeptical voter that the president's policies have benefited Americans. The ad doesn't specifically mention black voters. The voter offers that he voted for Biden in 2020, but not this time, and you can judge the voice for yourself. Perhaps more telling is where MAGA Inc. is running ads, radio ads. A check of various public files of radio stations via the FCC. Okay. Website shows that Magic 107.5 in suburban Atlanta, WRNB in Philadelphia, and WGPR, which is Hot 107.5 in Detroit. Here's a recent order for WMXD in Detroit. And I know you can't really see it right there, but don't feel bad. I really can't either. It's not like the Biden campaign is absent from these stations that primarily seek to serve black Americans. You can find ad spending in many of them, and often in larger amounts. But as others have pointed out, even modest inroads with what have been an overwhelming Democratic electorate in key states could be consequential. In addition, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign also has begun airing spots, including on WMXD in Detroit, starting in April. I've begun tracking radio ad buys from many of these stations and will be returning to the subject as November nears. If you use RSS feeds, you can do the same for individual stations. The disclosures themselves will often say which time blocks those spots are or spots air, but won't always say exactly which ads are being aired and are being aired when. The amounts, while important, aren't as significant to me as the volume and timing of them. Well, the amounts, I understand what he's saying, but the amounts do matter to me. That's, of course, tells you how much or how serious or confident they are about that strategy. That's the way I've always felt. I think that's right. I'm correct to feel that way. So, there you have it. This is something no Republican has done. Am I right? Anybody can find a similar situation? I think I am right. I don't think we can find at least not with that kind of money either, comparable situation in which a Republican president in recent time put down cheddar like that to try to reach out to black voters. And it was smart to go to radio. Why? Anyone who's had any friends in tightly knit black communities know those stations are playing in the hair salons, the nail salons. You got to get to the women, as many as you can. They need to give their seal of approval to some. That's it. All right. It is 1:55. I have to say this, and then we have to boogie. Jack Posobiec, Human Events, couple of minutes, top of the hour. All right. Don't miss it. It will be, I'm going to tweet it anyway, so don't worry about it. I'll tweet it. All right. Be on with Jack Posobiec to talk about this and so much more. Especially with the trial and the politics of the trial. We'll talk about that a lot more as well, but don't miss it. It's in literally a few minutes. It will start. All right. Don't forget, if you like the videos, like them and share them, of course, far and wide. Cross like and share, meaning if you are on YouTube, it'd be great if you would go over to Rumble and go ahead and give it a like, give it a share, subscribe. But of course, the best place to follow us is, as always, thank you, Laura, right down there, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. Oh, also, Public Polling Project, links in the description, right? Special thanks to Daniel Street again. When I tell you folks, that news broke this morning, and we knew we were expecting some drama was going to happen. And he popped right on, which is incredible that he took time from his very busy day to do that. And we thank him very much for it. You should definitely go and check out his website, danielrstreet.com. Sign up to his Substack. You will not be disappointed. You will like it. I guarantee it. Unless, of course, you don't like good stuff. So maybe I can't guarantee it. Maybe some people have bad taste. Sorry if you do. Daniel's the man. His works are the man. What else am I missing? My sponsors. All right. To the new one, Freedom Gold USA. Call that number if you are looking to diversify any of the stuff we were talking about. Freedom Gold USA is pretty awesome. All right. And low pressure, no pressure, really not low, no pressure. A lot of the other companies, that's just the nature of the beast, and they are very high pressure sales. With Freedom Gold USA, they're relying more on word of mouth and advertising. So they're not going to do that. They're going to make sure you're educated. They're going to make sure you know what you need, want, or whatever it may be. And then they'll see if they can get you a deal. It's that really is that simple. And then, of course, the wellness company, Dr. Peter McCullough and all those guys, his staff over there, they're fantastic. Get one of their kits if you can. You will not regret it. All right. Peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind. Especially since I got kids, really is peace of mind. All right. With that in mind, it's 1:57. The last thing I'm going to say is the public polling project. All right. It has been very slow. I understand times are tough and things suck. So I'm not going to push you that hard. I'm just going to give you a friendly reminder. The public polling project is there. Georgia's still been there for a long time. Funds have been just sitting there. Something's got to get moving with it or cracking with it, or I'm going to transfer it for another poll. All right. I know that that's like a crappy thing to say and do, but we cannot have a poll funding for 3 months and it be at 33%. Okay. Just cannot do that. All right. So, yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I think this was a good show myself. And Daniel's just a wealth of information. He's great. He really is. But you can always go to locals. If you're unsure where to, support the public polling project, you can always go to locals, and that link will say supporter banners, little hands up in the air. It's right there. But the link is in the description to every video as well. All right. If you're watching it on an app, though, you won't know that. You'd have to go to either bigdatapoll.com and find it, or the best place, as always, which is on locals. And you will see a little thing that says hand, support our polls. That's it. All right. So, share it far and wide. That would be great. For those, if you like, or, you want to support and anyone who wants to support transparent, credible, honest polling, that would be the place to do it. We don't get grants from wealthy donors. We don't get grants from left-wing academics, right-wing, I don't know, beat commercials. I don't know. We don't do that. So we rely on crowdfunding. All right. I think that's it. It is 1:59. So I got a boogie, nothing but love for you, but I'll leave you with this. Deuces. Right, Laura?
Sorry, delayed reaction. Deuces.
There it is.
I'm too busy doing all these things. Love you guys. See you at Jack Human Events.
Yeah, go to Human Events right now.